The shuttle landed on the glowing landing platform of Viralux Prime, and Darren Cole stepped out into a world that felt like it belonged in a legend. Towers of white stone curved into the sky like giant blades. Blue fires floated in the air like living lanterns. Thousands of alien citizens watched from balconies and high bridges, whispering about the human who had come from the distant planet Earth. Darren had not come for a fight. He had been sent for a diplomatic escort mission. Simple greetings, simple formalities, shake hands, share cultural respect, and return home. Nothing more. But the Viralux Empire was famous for its strict warrior traditions. It seemed they did not know how to meet someone without testing them first, and that test came in the form of Princess Sarilith. She walked toward him across the arena ground with steps full of pride. Her armor shifted like liquid metal, and her silver eyes glowed with confidence. Her people's cheers grew louder as she raised a hand for silence, her voice carried across the entire arena. "You won't last a minute, human." The crowd burst into excited shouts. To them, it was not an insult. It was simply truth. Humans were slow, fragile, and untested in their eyes. Everyone believed she would defeat him effortlessly. Darren stood calmly with his hands behind his back. He was not intimidated. He had survived battles far worse than ceremonial challenges. He had been through military survival training, high-gravity drills, and real wars where every mistake cost lives. Compared to all that, this alien arena felt almost peaceful. He simply replied, "I've handled worse." His quiet confidence made the princess raise an eyebrow. She had expected fear or excuses. Instead, she found a man who looked like he had already accepted whatever would happen next. The arena brightened as ancient mechanisms came alive. The ground shifted and divided into floating platforms. Gravity weakened in some areas and strengthened in others. Energy barriers formed shapes, creating a moving obstacle field that trained warriors needed years to master. Sarilith leaped into the air with natural grace. Her species was known for their speed and agility. She moved like lightning, her armor shining with every twist. She expected Darren to struggle just to stay standing, but Darren observed her first, steady and focused. He did not chase her. He waited, learned the pattern, watched how the platforms moved. Then he stepped forward and began adapting. His boots landed on each surface at perfect timing. When gravity shifted, he adjusted his posture without panic. When a barrier appeared suddenly, he bent under it and continued moving. Inch by inch, he kept up with her pace. The crowd began murmuring in confusion. Humans were not supposed to be able to do this. He should have slipped, fallen, or been blasted out of the trial in seconds. But he kept moving with surprising control. Sarilith attacked with a quick dash that left a streak of light behind her. Darren raised his arm and blocked it, the impact echoing through the arena. She pulled back, shocked. His bones should have cracked. His stance should have collapsed. Instead, he only stepped back half a meter. No one had blocked one of her dashes before. "You studied my movement," she said, a mix of surprise and curiosity in her voice. "I had to," Darren answered. "You move fast." Her lips tightened, not in anger but in rising interest. For the first time, she felt challenged. She launched another strike, faster and stronger. Darren dodged one blow, blocked another, and used the shifting platforms to redirect her momentum. She stumbled a little, and the crowd gasped. The Princess of Viralux never stumbled. Her pride flared. She launched herself higher, using 3 platforms for speed. She came down with a powerful strike meant to end the trial. Darren rolled aside at the last moment, letting her hit the ground as a shockwave spread outward. He stood back up quickly, breathing hard but steady. She was impressed, though she tried to hide it. "You are not like the others." "And you're stronger than I expected," Darren replied honestly. For a moment, both warriors simply looked at each other across the arena, one filled with pride, the other filled with calm resolve. The crowd watched with breath held, sensing that something unusual was happening. This was no longer a simple challenge. It had become a test of understanding between two different worlds. Then, without warning, the arena malfunctioned. An energy pillar burst from the ground too early, sending unstable sparks everywhere. Platforms jerked violently, and gravity fields reversed at the wrong moment. The crowd screamed. This had never happened before. The trial system was ancient but always reliable, until now. A broken energy beam shot directly toward the princess. She was caught mid-air with no time to dodge. Darren reacted instantly. He sprinted across unstable platforms, ignoring the wild gravity changes. He jumped in front of her and pushed her aside just as the energy strike exploded behind them. The blast threw both of them across the ground. Darren took most of the impact on his back. The arena fell silent as smoke drifted upward. Sarilith sat up slowly, her silver eyes wide with disbelief. "You saved me." Darren groaned but managed a small smile. Would have been a shame to end the trial that way. She stared at him as if seeing a human for the first time. Viralux warriors were trained to protect themselves, not to risk their safety for an enemy mid-battle. Her own fighters never would have done what Darren just did. Not during a challenge, not during combat, not ever. "You protected me," she repeated, her voice softer now. "Even when we were fighting." "That's what humans do," he answered, rising to his feet despite the pain. The crowd whispered in shock. Many had never witnessed a selfless act during a royal trial. It went against everything they understood about combat traditions. The arena officials rushed in to deactivate the failing systems. The trial was officially paused, but the story of what had happened was already spreading through the stands like wildfire. Sarilith stood as well, but she did not lift her weapon again. Instead, she simply looked at Darren with confusion. Confusion mixed with respect that she tried to hide. "You are different," she said quietly, so only he could hear. He shrugged. "Most humans are. You just haven't met enough of us." She opened her mouth as if to argue, but no words came. Her pride still existed. But it had been shaken by what she had seen. Humans, she realized, did not fight like her people. They fought to survive, to protect, to help, even when the situation turned dangerous. As the sun dimmed behind the tall arena walls, Sarilith kept watching him. She was supposed to be the unbeatable heir of Viralux, yet she felt like she was the one who had been tested today. Darren began walking toward the exit tunnels, expecting the officials to end the challenge for the day. But the princess called out to him, her voice steady despite her confusion. "Human, what kind of warrior are you?" Darren stopped and looked back. "The kind who doesn't quit, the kind who doesn't run, the kind who saves people." She did not blink. "I misjudged you." He gave her a small nod. "Everyone does." For the first time in her life, Princess Sarilith felt something she had never felt after any battle, an urge to learn more, to understand, to look beyond her assumptions. She watched him walk away with a strange feeling in her chest, something like curiosity mixed with respect. The crowd continued buzzing long after Darren disappeared into the tunnel. The story of the human who lasted far more than a minute and saved their princess would be told across the empire before the night ended. And as Sarilith looked at the fading sparks in the arena, she whispered only to herself, "What kind of human have I just confronted?" Her world and her beliefs had begun to change. The corridors beneath the Viralux arena were quiet when Darren walked through them. The glowing walls hummed softly, and guards stepped aside with uncertain expressions. They had watched the entire trial. They had seen the human do something no one from their own warrior race had ever done, save the princess during combat. Darren expected questions, maybe even anger from the royal council, but no one stopped him. Everyone looked more confused than offended. He was escorted to a resting chamber where medic drones floated around him, checking for injuries. "You are stable," one drone said in a calm voice. "Minor bruising. No fractures." "I've had worse," Darren replied with a tired smile. Before the drone could answer, the chamber door slid open. Princess Saralith entered, wearing a simpler version of her armor, without the shining plates and glowing energy lines. She looked less like the unstoppable warrior princess, and more like someone deep in thought. The drones floated away politely. Saralith stood a few steps away from Darren, as if unsure how to begin. Her silver eyes studied him the way a historian studies an ancient artifact, slowly, carefully, trying to understand its value. "You should be resting," she finally said. "You came here yourself?" Darren replied. She nodded. "I needed answers." He waited, letting her gather her thoughts. She paced slowly, something she never did in public. Her pride usually kept her movements sharp and controlled, but right now she looked almost unsure. "You risked your life for me," she said. "My people do not do that during a trial. We are taught to think of victory, not protection." "I wasn't thinking," Darren answered. "I just reacted." She stopped pacing. "Why? Why would a human protect someone who was trying to defeat you?" "Because you were in danger," he said honestly. "Because saving you was more important than winning." She stared at him for several long seconds. Something in her expression softened, though she tried to hide it. "You confuse me, human." "Most people say that," he said with a smirk. The princess almost smiled, but quickly turned away to hide it. For someone raised in a warrior empire, showing amusement during a serious moment probably felt strange. After a moment of silence, she spoke again. "The council will not allow the malfunction to be the end of your trial. They say a new test must be done." Darren sighed. "Let me guess, another fight?" "No." She took a breath. "I have suggested something else." He looked up. "Suggested?" She nodded. "A joint trial. A cooperative survival test. 2 warriors facing dangers together. It is an ancient tradition, one rarely used." "And you want to do that with me?" Her voice was calm, but carried a hint of pride. "Yes. I want to see how you fight beside me, not against me." Darren thought for a moment, then nodded. "All right. I'm in." The princess did not expect him to agree so easily. She blinked once, surprised, then straightened as if trying to regain her royal posture. "Then we begin at dawn," she said softly. The next morning, the sun rose red behind the tall arena towers, and the entire empire gathered to watch the 2 warriors enter the depth caves, a dangerous underground maze that tested teamwork and trust. The challenge had not been used in decades. Many citizens whispered that the princess was risking too much by pairing herself with a human. But Saralith ignored all opinions. She walked beside Darren, matching his pace. Her armor gleamed in the soft morning light, and Darren's metal gauntlets clicked with each step. At the cave entrance, she glanced at him. "Once we enter, the path changes. The caves are alive with shifting stone and energy storms. Stay close." "Got it," he replied. The moment they stepped inside, the world changed around them. The air grew colder. The walls glowed with faint blue lines like veins running through stone. Strange creatures scurried across the ceilings, leaving trails of light behind. The ground rumbled softly, like the entire cave was breathing. Saralith moved gracefully, stepping around cracks and listening to the shifting vibrations. Darren followed carefully, his eyes scanning every corner. The princess noticed his awareness and gave a small nod of approval. After several minutes, they reached a deep chamber where bioluminescent vines hung from the ceiling. A narrow stone bridge stretched over a dark pit where distant echoes bounced like whispers. "We have to cross," Saralith said. "I'll go first," Darren offered. "No," she said quickly. "I know the stability pattern of these bridges. I should lead." He didn't argue. She stepped onto the first stone tile, and it lit up beneath her foot with a soft flash. She moved lightly, activating the tiles in the correct sequence. Behind her, Darren stepped where she indicated. Halfway across, a loud crack echoed. A section of the bridge ahead shifted suddenly, breaking the expected pattern. Sarilith's foot slipped, and she stumbled toward the edge. Darren reacted instantly. He grabbed her hand and pulled her back with a strong motion. The stone she almost stepped on collapsed into the pit. She took a sharp breath. "Thank you." "2 for 2, Darren said lightly. She shook her head, trying not to smile. "You humans, you react so fast." "We're used to danger," he replied. They continued deeper into the caves. Strange floating creatures shimmered in the shadows. Rivers of blue energy moved beneath transparent rock. The path narrowed until they had to move side by side, their shoulders brushing slightly. Neither commented on it, though Sarilith seemed unusually aware of how close they were. Eventually, the ground rumbled harder, and a deep roar echoed through the cavern. Dust fell from the ceiling. Sarilith looked tense. "That sound," she whispered. "The guardian beast of the core chamber. It has awakened." "Guardian beast?" Darren asked. She nodded. "It hunts anything that enters too deep. We must stay quiet." The roar grew louder. A massive shadow appeared in the dim light. Its eyes glowed blue, and its limbs shook the stone as it crawled into the chamber. Darren held his breath. The creature had a long, armored body and sharp protrusions like natural spears. Sarilith signaled him to move slowly. They crept along the wall, careful not to draw attention, but the ground shifted beneath them. A chunk of stone broke loose under Sarilith's foot, and she fell with a cry. The beast turned its glowing eyes toward them. It charged. Darren grabbed her arm and pulled her into a side tunnel just as the beast slammed into the wall. The impact shook the cave violently. Sarilith winced in pain. Her leg had twisted during the fall. "You're hurt," Darren said. "I can still move," she insisted, but her voice shook slightly. Darren crouched and lifted her onto his back. She let out a quiet breath of surprise. "You don't have to." "I do," he said firmly. "Lean forward and hold on." She hesitated, then wrapped her arms around his shoulders. He began running deeper into the tunnel. Behind them, the beast roared again, furious and relentless. The cave shook as the creature chased them. Darren's legs burned with effort, but he pushed forward. Sarilith held tightly, feeling his strength as he carried her through the shifting stone corridors. At last, they reached a chamber filled with tall crystal pillars. Darren's eyes brightened with an idea. "These pillars," he said. "They resonate, right?" "Yes," she answered breathlessly. "If one breaks, the sound echoes for miles." "Perfect." He struck one with a strong kick. The crystal cracked sharply, sending a loud vibration through the chamber. The beast entered behind them and roared in pain. The resonance created waves that disoriented it. Darren shattered another pillar. The sound doubled, rising into a high frequency. The beast staggered and finally retreated into the darkness, unable to endure the noise. Sarilith stared at Darren in amazement. "You scared it away with sound." "It didn't like the pitch," he said, breathing hard. "Most creatures don't." She lowered her head slightly. "You saved me again." "Teamwork," he said with a smile. "Right?" She laughed softly, the sound echoing through the chamber. It was the first time he heard her laugh. When they finally emerged from the cave entrance, sunlight washed over them. A massive crowd waited outside. Cheers erupted across the arena grounds. They had survived the depth caves, something only a few pairs had ever done. The royal council watched in silent disbelief. The young princess stepped forward, leaning slightly on Darren for support. She looked over the crowd and raised her voice. "Let all of Viralux hear me," she said. "This human is no ordinary warrior. He has courage, strength, and honor. He fought beside me. He protected me, and he earned my respect." The citizens cheered louder. Darren simply stood beside her, unsure how to react to the sudden praise. Sarilith turned to him and held out her hand, not as a ruler, but as an equal. "Darren Cole," she said softly, "you lasted far more than a minute. You changed what I believed." He took her hand gently. "Glad I could help." She smiled, a real smile this time. "And human. Next time, I will train much harder." Darren chuckled. "Good, because I'll still be ready." The alliance between Earth and Viralux began that day, not through politics or treaties, but through two warriors who learned to trust each other in the darkness of the Depth Caves. And across the Empire, people whispered the new legend, the human who the princess said wouldn't last a minute, lasted long enough to change her world.